if you could explain what is the crack?
Hey,
The crack.
how can I have the crack? What's the crack?
What is the crack? You are the crack.
Welcome back to Audio Crack. We have a very special guest today, very interesting guest of something that I just started doing. I was a skeptic at first, but now I'm a full-on believer. We have the CEO and founder of Hostage Tape, Alex Neist. He's a former pro quarterback for the AFL, which is a scene that I really want to get into because it must have been, the Wild West of football. And as you see, I'm not keeping him hostage right now. He's got mouth tape on. And, Alex, thanks for coming on. I would have rocked the mouth tape to start the interview, but it's hard to podcast with your mouth so shut.
It wouldn't have been very interesting
Yes.
if we both had our mouths taped shut. So that's okay. But thanks for having me, Billy. This is great.
Dude, I'm pumped. So when I first talked to your team, they're like, we need to send you out some product. I'm like, okay, I'm sort of a little skeptical. There's a lot of stuff out on the internet.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I have a deviated, a buckled septum.
Right.
Double. So like, that's like worse than deviated. Like it's the type of thing that people who get nose jobs lie about having to actually get it fixed. But I just haven't got around to it. But I was like, okay, I've been using nasal strips for a long time. I actually used 2. I was like, okay,
Wait, you put 2 on your nose
yeah,
at the same time?
yes, I do. I got a pretty big nose. So I do one at the top,
Wow.
one at the bottom.
Okay.
So I gotta, it's a heavy duty situation up there. Boxing did not help my nasal situation.
Okay.
But I threw the tape on, and at first I was like, well, what if I want to drink water in the middle of the night? Because I do that a lot. I always go to bed with a bottle of water next. And I realized one of the reasons I was so dehydrated and drinking all that water was because my mouth was fucking open, and I'm just snoring and releasing all that moisture all night. So
Yeah.
I'm convinced. I've been doing it for the past week, and it's awesome. My recoveries on Whoop have improved.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the best thing is seeing people. They'll use their Whoop or their Oura Ring, and then they post their stats, and it's like scientific evidence that holy shit, this not only do I feel better, but this actually works. And this is what the stats say. So
how did you get to using this product, creating this product? Because that's a wild story.
it's a very wild story. And if you went to my Twitter, you saw I had a thread that went viral on the story. So the story is basically, my first love was football, right? I wanted to be a professional football player. And when that didn't happen, and we'll get into that later, but when that didn't happen, I started a software company. So I ran a video analytics company, and I ran that for about 16 years. And when you transition from being a pro athlete to being a dad to being a business owner, it's a completely new change of your life. It's hard to make the transition. So I struggled making that transition into having a business, having kids, everything. You sit at a desk all day, you lose, taking care of your body, gained a bunch of weight, and just wasn't taking care of myself. And so then it was through building the business, focusing too much on it. I was snoring like a freight train. I snored so bad that I pushed my wife into the other bedroom for years. Okay. And so when you sleep in separate bedrooms for years, man, that's not good. You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And most people they laugh about it, and they think, well, yeah, if you're snoring bad, sleep in the other bedroom, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. You shouldn't be. So resentment built, right? All sorts of stuff happens that we started getting farther and farther apart. And then we ended up going through divorce, separation. So at that time, I had sold my business. So I was vesting out the equity. And when you go through a divorce, what happens is basically all your assets freeze, all your finances freeze. So I was actually living in my aunt's basement at the time.
Oh, man.
This was literally 6-7 years ago. Okay. Not that long ago. And I'm 45. Okay. But when you go through that, everything's frozen. I'm in my aunt's basement. And I had one of those rock bottom moments of, fuck, what do I need to do to work on myself as a father, as a man, as a husband, as a leader? Because I hated the company that I sold to. I hated the job that I had at the time. You have to vest out the equity when when you sell. So I'm thinking, what do I got to do? So I started with my sleep. And, when you go on Amazon, you look for how do you stop snoring? You find the different mouth guards, you find the pillows, you find all these different things that usually don't work that well outside of maybe going to get surgery. And none of it worked. So then I went down a further rabbit hole when I found an article written by a guy named James Nestor. and he wrote this best-selling book. Okay. And there's an excerpt from the book. He talks about this experiment where they go to Stanford Medical Center, and over 10 days, they plug their nose. And over those 10 days, they develop sleep apnea, and they snort like crazy and at dangerously low levels of oxygen in their blood. After 10 days, they unplugged their nose, they mouth taped, and after 1 day, what do you think happened? Everything went away. So for me, like being the athlete that I was my whole life, I'm thinking, is it really that simple? Is it mouth breathing? Like, how did I go my whole life? And our coaches, did your coaches ever teach you this? Like mouth breathing and nose breathing?
Yeah.
No. Like yours did?
Oh, well, no, I was taught that when I was running.
Yeah. Mine didn't.
Yeah.
Like in football, my coaches never taught me that. I wasn't a runner.
Yeah.
But I never had a coach who taught me that. And so when I learned that, I went, holy shit. So then I went on Amazon, and at the time, mouth taping, it was a thing, but it wasn't really what it is today. Right. And I think obviously we're accredited as to why it's blown up so much, and you're starting to see it everywhere. So I just bought what I thought could work, right? You don't really know what to get. You don't know how to use it. So I bought it. And the first thought I had, that you probably had, that everybody has when they mouth tape for the first time is, well, wait a minute. What if my nose stuffs up? Am I going to suffocate and die?
Yeah.
Right. You had that thought, right?
I did.
Exactly. Everybody has it. So my cooler head prevailed, and I went, I'll be fine. Like my nose was meant for breathing here. I'm not going to die. So I put it on, went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like my teenage son. I couldn't believe the amount of energy I had, because I was a mouth breather my whole life. And when you get poor sleep, it stacks over and over, and it gets worse. So it was at that moment that for me as an entrepreneur, I went, holy shit, there's a business opportunity here, right? This is my next move. And I can actually build something that inspires other men, changes people's lives. And then the trick was, how do I actually build something though that stands out, that's different? Is there a big enough market here? Can I build an actual product, like a brand, rather than just try to sell something to people? So, and then that is where hostage tape was really born.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I've snored terribly. Now I don't snore with hostage tape. And when I wake up in the morning, it's easier.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. Like, I'm not as groggy. Like I used to put pre-workout next to my bed and just have it mix. So the first thing I did in the morning was drink pre-workout and get beta alanine. Because then like I'd go for a run, hit the gym. I try to get a workout in before I start my day. That's all like way easier. And there's so many things with diet and whatnot that you can do to like sort of get your energy levels up. But this is one of the ones I've done recently that I've really upped that.
Yeah.
Like, there's stuff like eliminating like carbs and like processed sugars and stuff that I've found had a big jump, but it's like very hard in practice. This one, once you get over like that one time you wake up where you're like, oh my God, I can't open my mouth. I'm like, oh wait, I taped my mouth shut. Like,
No, it's great. Well, let's actually talk about why you feel that way. Okay. Because everybody thinks, what the hell does it matter? Like, what's the difference? Right. So it comes down to a couple of like really simple things. When you breathe through your nose, you're actually getting more oxygen. It sounds counterintuitive, because you might be thinking, wait a minute, I'm not actually getting more air in through my nose, though. I can get more air through my mouth. What the hell does it matter? What happens is when we breathe through our nose, okay, and we keep our mouth shut, we're actually keeping more CO2 in our body. Okay. And there's a simple concept in our body called the Bohr effect, which basically says the more CO2 I have in our body, the better my body can take in the oxygen. Because if we don't have any CO2, then the oxygen that comes in can't get used. It actually just goes right back out. So there's a 1-for-1 exchange. Okay. So more CO2 I have in my body, the more I can use the oxygen. So quite simply, again, I can get more oxygen into my muscles for energy. Right. Another one is nitric oxide production. When you breathe through the nose, it triggers the release of nitric oxide. That's a vasodilator, which helps the blood flow, helps everything get moving. Right. Yeah. Also helps you get your dick hard, all that kind of stuff as you get to be my age. Right.
Nitric oxide, maximize that. If you're in the gym and like you take beta alanine or any NO2 explode, you do a bicep pump, your like arms are going to feel swole. Like I chase that every time.
I love the beta alanine like tingle. I love that tingle.
That's what I was doing in the morning to wake up, because that was like, I would be groggy in the morning, like, covering a game late and then like trying to hit the ground running. But that's what used to wake me up.
Some people hate it, but I love it. it like makes me feel alive.
I have to work out. I'm like,
Yeah.
the only way this is going to stop is
Yeah.
like hitting the gym, going for a run or doing whatever. I think it's psycho, but I love it.
So now another thing is when you breathe through your nose, it filters the air. So believe it or not, our lungs like warm, humid air.
Mhm.
And so when we breathe through our mouth, it's cold, it's dry, it's dirty.
Mhm.
And it goes through the nose. Now it gets cleaned, it gets warmed. It goes through these things called turbinates, spins around, warms it up, and then it gets humidified. And then our lungs can actually use that better. And then a final kind of odd one that most people don't know about is it protects our teeth. So when you mouth breathe and you dry out all the saliva, there's good bacteria in the saliva that protects the enamel. So when you are mouth breathing, all that goes away. Bad bacteria forms, creates super gnarly bad breath, eats away at the enamel, and then you get cavities. So here's a good story about a dentist. Okay. So when I was a kid, 2 stories about dentists. When I was a kid, my dentist used to always wonder why my teeth were so pitted out. Right. And I was a young athlete kid in high school. And he thought I was bulimic. He was like, I can't explain it. Are you bulimic? And I'm like, dude, I'm an athlete in high school. Like I play football. Like that just seems kind of weird. I'm not bulimic. So we just chalked it up to the fact that I used to drink a lot of orange juice.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe it's just the acidity in the orange juice. I don't know. So then later, now I learned, shit, it's because I was mouth breathing my whole like life as a kid, and it was killing the teeth and the enamel. Okay. Now, second story. Recently, so I've been mouth taping now for 5-6 years. Okay. Religiously every night.
Yeah.
And so I go to the dentist once every other year. Like
Yeah.
I'm really bad about going to the dentist. I take my kids to the dentist like a couple times a year. So I went to the dentist for the first time in 2 years a couple months ago. Okay. All right. I don't floss my teeth.
Mhm.
I brush definitely once a day, maybe twice a day, but I'm not like the greatest person of, taking care of my teeth. So I go in, they do the x-rays, they look at everything. And she goes, wow, your teeth look way better than they did 2 years ago. Like, what have you been doing? And I'm like, I haven't done anything other than I've been mouth taping, and my teeth look better. My gums look as good as they ever had because I'm not mouth breathing.
Dude, I had a huge stretch from, I feel like this happens to a lot of people who go to college
Yeah.
and then they get out of college. I went a stretch of freshman year of college to, I went like a couple months ago. I'm 25 now. So like a good 6-year stretch without going to the dentist.
That's normal, dude. It's totally normal.
Like a lot of guys go through that because they get
Yeah.
off their parents' insurance, and then it's like, oh, I'm not paying for the dentist.
Because like you realize like, wait, I got to pay $200 just to get my teeth. Fuck that. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Just give a check out in the mirror. Like,
No.
there's nothing wrong.
They look good.
No
Right.
pain.
Totally. I know. Right. So
Crazy. But yeah, I mean, what do you think that happened to humans where, this system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. So I did a podcast with one of the leading oral surgeons in the world. His name is
Uh-huh.
Dr. Elvie. He's based out of Houston.
Yeah.
So I did his podcast like a month ago, and I asked him this question. I said, Dr. Elvie, you're the expert in the whole world
Yeah.
on doing these kind of surgeries. Why do you think that we've evolved to mouth breathing, especially in Western culture?
Yeah.
And he said that he believes one of the reasons is because we're not breastfeeding
Whoa.
as much as we used to. So here's the theory.
Yeah.
The theory is that when children breastfeed
Hmm.
at a young age, they're using their mouths and their tongues, and then it's forcing them to learn how to nasal breathe.
Uh-huh.
So they're engaging this part of their body, right, their
Yeah.
face, way more than if we just put a bottle on a kid's hand. It's way easier. Like they can, the formula goes into their mouth way easier, and they don't really have to struggle and like work for it. And so that was part of the theory of why it's happened. And then the other one is we're just eating too much processed foods. We're not using and chewing, hard meat and foods anymore. So processed foods, a lack of breastfeeding, and things like that.
I mean, I actually noticed this. So I trained for, wild story, but I basically had a boxing match against Jose Canseco a couple years ago.
Seriously?
Yeah. And during that training, my nose got pretty banged up. Like, already had been like
Yeah.
pretty bad. But then during that training, got punched in the nose a lot. Septum totally buckled, totally lost a lot of breathing ability from my nose. And I realized that like over the past couple of years, my jawline has like I used to have like crimson chin, like cut jawline. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of going away. Is that like age? And I was like, no. And I was like, and that's when I first started using a nasal strip, because honestly, it helped my cardio so much when running. I first started using it just when sleeping. And then like one day I forgot to take it off while I was going for my morning run. And I was like, oh man, I'm feeling it today. I can push myself. Like what the hell's going on? I was like, oh my God, I have my nasal strip.
I know, right?
Yeah. And I was like, how much have I been missing this cardio?
It's amazing how many people. So like when I come to New York, I love going to Central Park and I love running, but then I also will people watch. Yeah. And it's amazing to watch the amount of people who are running are just going, they're just huffing and puffing out their mouth. And we shouldn't be, man. We should be keeping our mouth shut, breathing through their nose. And I do the same thing. When I run 3 days a week, about 3 to 5 miles. I can't get a workout in or do a run without wearing a nasal strip, a Haas's nose strip, because I can breathe. I don't have a deviated septum quite like you do, but still, like, I don't breathe quite out my nose as well as I should. And so having this thing on makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, I did it I almost felt like it unlocked, like my body was so badly conditioned with the nose that once that opened up, it like opened up a whole level of gas that I didn't have.
It does, man, because now what people don't realize is when you start breathing through your nose properly, all of a sudden your body starts getting oxygenated, and then you can actually power through the 1, 2, 3 mile, and you can go further than you ever thought you could.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because there's so many things, these little things, and you know, people today, like, they're very unhealthy, and I'm not a pristine picture of health by any means. I consume way too many carbs on the weekend. If you know what I'm saying.
I can even not, man. Been living in New York City and like going down the street and having like, you know, John's Pizza or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy, but with that, there's so many unhappy people who are like going through their days, like half like awake. And a lot of it is from like sleep quality.
Yeah.
But so I want to get back to basically you came out of a high school in Minnesota, correct?
Yep.
And
Minnesota.
then you went to which university?
So I went to the University of Minnesota. So I was a Gopher. I was actually a recruited walk-on. So I didn't get a scholarship because look, when you play quarterback, I wasn't blessed with your size. Like, you're a big dude. Okay. So coming out of high school, having your size, it's easy to get a scholarship, to get a look. Dude, I'm barely 6 feet. Right. And so coming out of high school, plus I ran the wishbone in high school. Okay?
Oh,
We ran a wishbone with a split.
yeah.
Where I audibled a lot to throw more.
Right.
So I didn't throw as much as I didn't come out of high school throwing like 50 touchdowns. Okay.
Yeah.
I threw maybe 10 touchdowns in a season, 1,000 yards in a season running the wishbone. So coming out of high school, I wasn't really recruited by a lot of big schools, but I wanted to go big time. I was like Brett Favre in many ways, where like Brett knew coming out of high school that he could play, even though he played in wishbone too, but he wanted to play at a bigger school. So that's what I tried. And I played there for a few years, didn't really work out. And then I transferred and went to a Division II school, Concordia St. Paul, down the street. Then I played quarterback there. And it was one of those situations where, again, I knew I could play, right? I knew I could play. So then I said, I'm going to go play arena football.
Yeah.
And then it was at that point that, Kurt Warner had done his thing.
Right.
And I loved the Cinderella story of Kurt Warner. And I'm like, I'm going to be the next Kurt Warner.
Yeah.
Right. Because Kurt, for those who don't know, right, he was stocking shelves in Hy-Vee. And Jim Foster came to him and said, Kurt, I want you to come play for me for the Iowa Barnstormers. And Kurt's like, fuck that. I ain't going to go arena football. Really? No way. It's beneath me. But then he went, wait a minute. This is going to give me tape. It's going to give me a chance to play. I got to do it. And then he went on, killed it. And then he eventually made his way to St. Louis, and then Trent Green went down, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I wanted to do. So I played arena football. And when you play arena football, you typically don't play in one team.
Right.
You might play on 4, 5, 6 different teams because, look, we didn't get paid that much.
Right.
And so you'd bounce around, you play in different places. And I wasn't from a city that had a town like Minneapolis, St. Paul. They had the Fighting Pike years like before, but it didn't exist anymore. So it's not like I could play in my hometown, arena. Yeah, I couldn't do that. So I was having a great time, like living out of my suitcase, literally traveling, going to different cities. And I played So man, my first team I played for was the Tri-City Diesel. It actually wasn't arena football. It was indoor football out of Kearney, Nebraska, in the middle of nowhere off I-80. So if you've ever crossed I-80 and you know that big restaurant that crosses over I-80, like, that's Kearney. So I played there. In the first year, I was just the quarterback. I threw like 44 touchdowns, 3 interceptions that year.
Wow.
We won the conference. And then I went on and I played for Tulsa. I was in Tulsa. And
it's crazy because that whole lifestyle, like you hear that more like in hockey.
Yeah.
It's like all these like small teams that are across the country, like, you know, like playing juniors, but like that when it comes to football is like, those guys must have been nuts. Just like, it must have been pretty crazy on the road.
Well, the thing about it is like, there's 2 types of guys playing arena football. They're the guys who are going up, and then there's the guys who are coming down.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a mix of guys who like were playing in the NFL and then they're falling down because they just couldn't make the roster, or they had a bunch of disciplinary issues, or you had the guys who like, okay, here's a good one. So the team that I'm most known for, I was a quarterback for the Spokane Shock, the inaugural season, 2006. And like, that was one where, dude, like we sold out the arenas. There was 15,000 people in every game, run out of the tunnel. It was like amazing. It's where I met my wife, Julie.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Trufant was on that team. So Isaiah Trufant, I think he's still playing in the league. He was a guy who he's like 5'6" corner. Like, I think he was out of Eastern Washington.
Oh yeah.
But he was like, he's really small. I think is he with the Jets maybe?
Yeah.
Or he was with the Jets. Is he still with the Jets?
He's former. Oh yeah. So he's retired now.
Is he retired? Okay.
He was on the Jets.
Okay.
Yeah. The last time he played was for the Browns in 2014.
So he's a great example of a guy who he was super undersized, and because of his name and his brother and everything, people sort of were like, okay, this guy could be somebody. And he was on the up and up. And then he played 1 year with us, and then he got picked up and he started in the NFL for a number of years, and he was like locked down. Right. Wow. But that's a great example of guys I played with where coming out of nowhere, right? Doesn't have a lot of size, but the dude was talented. So,
I mean, that I've always been thinking about like going over to Europe and trying to play. Like my career was like weird because, you know, I didn't play much at the school. I went to the best school I could have gone to, not the school I could have played at.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. Senior year got cut short.
That's the worst, man. I feel sorry for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah. In college. But then, you know, so then I started working here again after I was an intern, and I was like caught up in that. And I was like, I still got 2 years of eligibility. Like, I still think I can
Do you
play.
still have 2 years?
Yeah. I have my COVID year and my senior year.
Wow.
Because I didn't play my senior year. So, I mean, I don't know if I still got it, but I think I might be too many years out now,
Yeah.
but who knows? Like, let's say I get like a graduate degree or something, maybe just throw it back on, see what happens. Could be fun.
I always have these dreams because like when you get to be my age and you look back, because I coached for 15 some years as a offense coordinator.
Yeah.
When you get to be my age and you look back, you go, God damn, if I'd have known what I know now when I was playing, imagine the career I could have had. Because I didn't have the career. You and I both, we didn't have the career we wanted.
Yeah.
Right. But then I look back and I go, I have these dreams periodically where I got my second shot, you know, and I'm the starting quarterback for the Gophers, and I'm out there and like, it's weird.
I mean, it's used to, you know, throwing the ball in the AFL, like coming from high school, you threw the ball probably like 10 times a game, maybe.
But yeah, something like that.
Like my learning curve was I played out of a spread in high school.
Yeah.
And, you know, calling out, protections, pass protects, multiple formations. Like our play calls were pretty succinct, but very like passing heavy and large passing concepts. So like I was always focused on the pass game, not so much of like making sure if this type of blitz is being shown, I was just getting the ball out fast, West Coast style.
Dude, when I got to college, everything you're talking about was normal, and it was like Greek to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, what? I gotta know the protection.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is. Like, I didn't even I did not know how to read a defense till my junior year of high school.
Yeah. I mean, the learning curve is crazy, and it's like crazy to see a guy like Johnny Manziel, right? He was just going out at A&M he didn't really read the playbook. He
No.
wasn't really breaking down defenses, and he was just going out there and balling. I mean, but it's crazy. Ryan Williams,
Okay.
17 years old. He was playing for Alabama Saturday night against Georgia, and he basically won the whole game for Alabama after Georgia came back. This guy's 17.
It's wild, dude.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's a 17-year-old kid. Like,
And he might
well, let's be honest though. Who was I think you guys were talking about this on a pod. The game is almost being simplified in a way. And I do know that, there's been stories of some of the guys that we've seen come up, go through into the NFL that are long gone now, that were runners, where they would take half the field away. I think RG3 was a good example of that, where Baylor, I think they literally said, we're going to take half the field, throw it away. I don't want you to look at this side. Just look play side. If it's here, great. If it's not, take off and run.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing that with a lot of these kids more and more, but also it's just, can you imagine now though, like getting into the NFL and trying to call a Gruden play,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys where basically what they've done with the game is they know they have the better athletes at the college level.
Yeah.
So they're like, we can just have our way better recruit beat your guy one-on-one. So we can call very simple plays with better athletes, and almost like how a really good high school team beats a team without as much talent.
Well, and with the all the RPO shit that they're running now, like you literally can go out now and say, all right, we're either running, this concept, this pass concept, or you're going to hand it off and run zone.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good, simple concept that is unstoppable. So,
and then you have someone at the NFL level, Fred Warner, who can play the run and the pass in that exact same way. And then taking it another step, you got like guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield.
I'm in Minnesota, so don't get me started about Sam, man. I love what I'm seeing.
I mean, I'm a Jets fan. I thought Sam Darnold was terrible, but literally he just got the time to learn how to be an NFL quarterback, and now he's a good NFL quarterback.
I think we've seen this time and time again, right?
Yeah. How
many quarterbacks come into the league, into the NFL, and they get thrown into the fire too soon? Yeah. And dude, it is a confidence game. If as a quarterback, everything we have is confidence. Mm-hmm. And at the NFL level, dude, if your confidence gets shaken, you're not the same guy. So these kids, they get pulled out, put into the NFL, these complicated systems, and are expected. They have these such high expectations. Yeah. That how the hell do we expect them to actually meet those expectations? And then they don't meet it. So the guys that do well, and look, Peyton Manning is right. Like he's an oddball,
but he threw so many interceptions his first year.
Well, okay. I think the thing with Peyton was they literally gave him every opportunity just to keep failing and keep going, rather than a lot of these guys, they don't have that grace. Yeah. They don't give them as much grace as they probably gave Peyton. Yeah. But like everything about Peyton, you just knew. You just needed to give him time. Whereas these other guys, like you don't really know. He doesn't have the lineage maybe that he had. Mm. So I think they're throwing guys in too soon, too much. They just got to give them a couple years under the belt to develop. So who knows? Like that's what they were going to do with JJ, obviously in Minnesota, right? And you could look at it and go, this worked out in an amazing way, potentially, because, JJ needs to learn, right, under him. But now I think Sam went way above the ceiling that they thought he had. Mm-hmm. So how long is he going to be the starter now if this continues to go well?
If I was JJ, I'd sit back and be like, don't put me in. I'm not ready. Patrick Mahomes, right? He sat behind Alex Smith, and he's, takes a lot of risks as a quarterback. People always get on me for this, but like, I think Zach Wilson still has, like seeing how all Geno Smith, all these other Jets quarterbacks who haven't done well but found success elsewhere, I think there's still room for him to grow and become a decent NFL quarterback.
He's a talented dude, man. Yeah. He really was.
People don't understand who didn't play and didn't throw the football. Zach Wilson can do stuff with the football that none of those other guys can. Right. And that's what people, and yes, he did so badly on the Jets and everyone clowns him for it, like, making bad mistakes, but like he throws the ball different. It's just different. I mean, it's like closer to Patrick Mahomes than it is Sam Darnold.
Well, what's interesting is to see how the mechanics of the game are evolving and changing, right? And just how it's funny. I know when I was younger, I used to throw. I had a very level,
Pad level.
and
Keep
how
your shoulders square.
through.
Yeah.
And I used to hold the ball very low, and I was a 3/4. I call myself a putter. I wasn't a thrower.
Yeah.
Where I'd put the ball very similar to how Pat's kind of a putter too. He kind of puts the ball rather than throws it.
Yeah.
Whereas most of us when we were younger, all growing up, they were teaching everybody to be high and then to throw over the top like this. And we're not teaching that anymore. And it's great to see that it's not about high and tight and over the top. It's actually about using our body mechanics better and more efficiently.
Like a punch.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
throwing like a punch is like that whole, I remember drilling that, just getting my arm up, back, keeping it up here. But nowadays, I honestly think it's because I'm also stronger. When I throw a football, like I'm throwing it more with my hip and my wrist and forearm, which Aaron Rodgers, he flicks the ball.
He's a great example of, like, you compare him at Cal to now, it's night and day.
Yeah.
When he was at Cal and Tedford made him like go up here and he was just robotic and awful.
Robo QB.
Right. And now he's comfortable down here,
gunslinging.
Right.
Just slinging it. And like, I don't know how many clunky, like, we're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing baseball players who have great release points, guys who are making throws off platform and like are really just letting it loose and sort of throwing the way the body's supposed to throw,
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I thought, it was interesting for me, what I still think it's a bit strange is, you remember when Brady came out and was really big on keeping the left arm not moving. To me, that was really strange.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been playing with it myself. Like when I go out and I throw, of why keeping the left arm so still is important. It's still odd to me, but I'm still working on that one.
I think it's more like throwing it down. I used to get my elbow a little too high and throw like basically like I'm spinning as opposed to getting it up and over like a trebuchet. You get what I'm saying? Like, and that was something that I unlocked a lot more like power and distance in my throw. Whereas I'm throwing my elbow down and, like having it close to my body so that my momentum is trebucheting the ball up. So in a way,
to that point too, I think the thing that I'd always naturally done that we're seeing, and it's probably because of that, is it's like you said earlier, boxer, right?
Yeah.
When you're keeping your feet within your shoulders and then you're using your hips, right? Like when you throw a punch, that's the exact same thing when you throw a football, right?
Yeah.
You're getting your power from your hips and your core, and you can't do that when you're trying to be here up over the top. Like, you just can't. It doesn't all work the same.
When I started boxing, I actually found that I had much more full body momentum control. So like I could put more behind a punch without just like over forcing it. I was throwing the punch.
Yeah.
And then that almost ended when I was throwing a football. Like, and this is way after my playing days. I feel like, oh man, I just unlocked, like, it's just, I'm not forcing my throw like with my arm. I'm just slinging it and it's going just as far as it did when I was just like throwing my whole body into it. And like, that's when I'm like, I need to go to Europe, go play for the Firenze Unicorns and go ball against, I have a bunch of teammates who play for like the Coitbus Crayfish.
Well, dude, they brought the AFL back. So the AFL went under for a number of years and they brought it back. So they're bringing teams back. So you might have a chance.
I mean, if I get a couple months, I don't know. They had that fan controlled football league.
Yeah, that was wild. I don't think that's around anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
Manziel was playing for it.
Yeah, that was
They had some good social media promo. Like a guy once lit up a joint after scoring a touchdown. I mean,
the interesting draw out of the fan control football league, because my first company that I'd owned and started was a huddle competitor, right? It was a sports video analytics company where basically it was video gets filmed, and then where we differentiated was I would have all the video broken down by humans. We would take human intelligence, we would break it down, add data to it, so then the coaches could wake up the next morning, pull out every single play situation, teach the players more effectively. So I pioneered the concept of actually breaking video down, which Huddle then later said, that's a great idea. We're going to do that too. So it really started with my company. And then where I was going with that was so the Fan Control Football League, they used my company as well as all the arena football leagues and indoor football leagues used us. But the Fan Control Football League, the fans would call the plays.
Yeah.
So they had this app where they would have like 4 play options or something like that. And then the fans would vote and pick it.
Yeah.
Prior to the play being called. And then that's the play that they would run. And they just made it really fun and enjoyable to watch and kind of engage with, which was kind of a neat take on it. So,
I mean, that just doesn't work from a football
No.
standpoint. Just like crowdsourcing the play call,
No.
like get it down a distance.
I mean, I get the idea of like, how do we make this entertaining and engaging? So very intriguing and interesting. And I think the other thing that they did that was interesting was they played every game in the same arena.
Right.
Right. So they had all the teams in the same place, same arena. So there wasn't extra overhead being spent on other cities, travel, all these other situations.
Yeah.
So, but
that's what the PLL's done. And now they've gone to city-based platform, but the PLL is fascinating because
that's lacrosse, right?
Yeah, lacrosse. Premier Lacrosse League. They started the league like a startup.
Yeah.
So, which is fascinating how they did. Shout out Paul Rabel. Paul, I need to get you on the podcast. A great guy, but basically him and his brother raised all this money. We're like showing like, look, we're going to bring every single youth lacrosse team and bring them to games and create fans from young ages and like change this narrative. Because so many people play lacrosse when they're young and then they just stop following it when they get to a certain age.
Yeah.
And he was like, if we can keep them, if we have a product that can get them on, like it, and now in the gambling space, people will watch anything to bet on it, which brings tons of viewership. And he's like, they made like their evaluation. I don't know what it is right now, but they've been a success in that regard by doing like one location based. So they would tour and all the teams would play.
Yeah.
And it's been great to see. And as an entrepreneur, I'm so all I know is a podcast. I've been podcasting since I was 18 and, you know, I went to school, got back into content creation, but what like really fascinates me is all these guys who like raised money to make their ideas happen.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ideas. I'm not really good on the execution of the ideas, but they pop into my head. I'm like, that would be a good business. But like, how do you start raising money? Like where do you go?
Well, so you don't always have to raise money.
Right.
Okay. And both of the businesses that I've started, my first business, I actually didn't raise any money. It's what we call bootstrapping.
Yeah.
I bootstrapped it. Didn't raise any didn't raise any angel investment. And then this company, I didn't again raise any money, although I used money from my first venture that I'd sold to be able to start it and fund this. But I would say like, you don't have to raise money. And if you don't have to raise money, don't. Because there's certain things like, yes, if you're going to start some crazy medical startup, you probably got to raise money to do it. Yeah. But dude, if you want to just create a product, a consumable product or some sort of apparel, you don't have to raise money. Like you can easily get started. In this day and age, there's so many different ways to at least start. Like, dude, you can get on Shopify for practically nothing, create a store, right? It's so easy to get the foundation of an online business that didn't exist 10 years ago when I was younger, right? So it's way easier to at least get started. But I would say before you even really spend a lot of money on it, just test a proof of concept out. Like you can test out ideas and say, like, you can say, hey, we're doing a new drop of this product where it's going to be launching in 3 months and you don't actually have it, just to gauge, okay, is there a lot of interest in this product? And will they like it? Will they buy it? And then you can do that, launch it really cheap with some Facebook ads, right? Drive people to a page and then see if enough people like want in on it early. And then if enough do, then you could launch it.
Were you ever worried that the hostage tape type, like it works, it gets people's attention, but
so
let's talk
what
about this really about?
So when people see hostage tape, they go, why the fuck would you call it hostage tape? Like, isn't that a bit extreme? Like in this day and age? So here's the story behind why I called it hostage tape. So when I first started mouth taping, it was when my wife and I were separated. And by the way, my wife and I are back together. So we had divorced, separated. And then when the company launched and we started to take off, the universe aligned and we got back together. So when we were separated, though, when my kids were with me at my house, I used to warn them. I would say, all right, guys, if you bust into the room and you see me, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to be wearing tape on my mouth. It's going to look like I'm being held hostage. So don't freak out. Okay. I didn't realize at the time that I was going to call it hostage tape. All right. But then later I went, wait a minute. And I was really into Liquid Death at the time. Yeah. So what Mike and the guys did with the branding of Liquid Death was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, awesome.
And so I went, wait a minute. That's it. Because the currency in this day and age is attention, right? With social media, podcasting, everything, dude, mainstream media is dead. It's dying. Yeah. Everything is transitioning to what you guys have done here, Barstool, and everything on social. So I knew I have to create a brand that gets people's attention, right? So Moise Ali is a great example of this. He's a famous founder of Native deodorant. Like when you go into Target, it's that really famous white stick of deodorant that you see. It's all natural. And he tells this story where you go down the aisles of Target and you see there's a wall of white of a product. That means there's an opportunity. And that means you can stand out. There's a big enough market. You can create something that people can go, this is different than what I'm normally seeing. So Liquid Death gave me, and Native, that gave me the kind of the balls to say, all right, there's 128 million households in the US. Over 71% of them are mouth breathing at night. So there's a big enough market here for this. That's it. Let's create a brand that gets people's attention. Hostage tape. That's it. Yes. The irony is you kind of look like a hostage when you're wearing it. But on the flip side of it, we were tapping into this emotion people feel. People feel held hostage by poor sleep or their partner, and they don't know what to do. So don't let bad sleep hold you hostage. That became the brand, right? So now when you scroll through Instagram and you see an ad for hostage tape, you go, what the fuck is this? And you're never going to forget it.
Yeah.
So I'm always branded, right? I'm always wearing this stuff, and I'll walk through an airport and I'll get people and they'll go, hostage tape. Hey, do you work for hostage tape? And I'll say, well, I'm actually the founder. And they'll go, oh my God, dude, I've been wearing hostage tape for 6 months and it changed my life.
Wow.
Right. Or it saved my marriage. And so hostage tape was really, yes, an attempt to get people's attention, but also tapping into this emotion people feel and inspiring men to do this crazy little thing called mouth taping.
Yeah, and I heard now you have it coming in pink, which
so
it's not just
so this is the hero.
Yeah.
Right? This is our hero that most everybody sees and uses.
Yeah.
And then now we have our pink version for the women, for the ladies, that they can use along with
little his and hers.
Little his and hers. Yeah, I mean, most of our users and most people who mouth breathe at night, they're men. I mean, that's most.
Why do you think that is?
Dude, that's a good question, man. I don't know.
Like sleep apnea is affecting men. Is it just more like overweight?
I don't know. That's a great question that I would love, Dr. Elfie, if you're watching this, I would love to have them tell me, but I don't know. But that is the stat, man. Like it's probably like 75-25.
Yeah.
Most, 3/4 of the people who suffer are men, and especially our customers too. We're about a 75-25% split. So
yeah. I mean, I also see that you have this new like snot, like what?
Yeah. Okay. So you got to try this. You haven't tried this yet.
I used to love smelling salts.
So these are our nasal sticks. Okay. It's got menthol in it, eucalyptus. Shout out Boom Boom, the Boom Boom guys. We're partnered with them on this thing. So now go ahead and sniff it. Yep.
Oh,
right.
Oh, I need that.
Ooh, totally. So, okay. So this brand was actually made really popular by Jordan Belfort, right? And he wrote about this in his Wolf of Wall Street book. They used to use these Boom Boom nasal inhalers, right, as kind of a pick-me-up in the office. And so when the Boom Boom guys saw this,
the only thing they're sniffing,
right? They weren't just sniffing this. Totally. They were like, dude, we have to work together. And so we got together, and then we created the hostage nasal stick. And everywhere we go, we hand these things out. People love these things. Like they just can't get enough of them.
Dude, I mean, before we get back into our interview with Alex Neist, I want to talk to you about our presenting sponsor, Dub. Dub is a copy trading platform unlike any other. It is like the eBay for investing. It is a marketplace where you can copy the investments of great traders or be the trader who gets copied. It is the democratization of access to hedge funds. You know, you don't need the millions of billions of dollars to get the same returns that some of these large hedge funds and the people picking the stocks give them. You can have the concept of picking people instead of stocks to everybody. Today, you need millions, but you don't need millions with Dub. There's portfolios based on politicians, insiders, and hedge funds. Users have built portfolios that track their public trade filings. One of the top performers is the Pelosi portfolio, is up over 70% this year. Maybe because of some of her Visa trades. We'll see. Portfolios are built by up and coming traders. So some of the best portfolios are actually from users who have built portfolios with trading with tons of unique strategies. Some of them are beating Pelosi and now have thousands of copiers. Best part is no one can fake their performance because Dub is the first regulated copy trading platform. The company is regulated. Dub Capital is an SEC registered investment. That is the Securities and Exchange Commission, not the Southeastern Conference. And Dub Financial is a broker-dealer member of FINRA, just like Fidelity or Schwab. They're also SIPC insured up to $500K. And the trades happen automatically. So you can just put your money in, set it, and forget it. You don't have to check the market every day. They're trading for you. And it's easy. They just copy every trade automatically. And when the portfolio trades, you trade. It's so easy. Set it and forget it. So I'd recommend going to dubapp.com-Billy. That is dubapp.com-Billy. Use that sign up code. You can get $20 anytime you invite your friend for a 1 week free trial. So look, if you invite your 10 friends in your fantasy football group chat, you'll get $200 if they all use your link. And then you can invest that money and grow it. It's amazing. Barstool Sports is a paid promoter for Dub and receives compensation for the promotion of its services. Check out dubapp.com-Billy. Past results do not guarantee future performances. Check out dubapp.com-Billy. Check it out. It's an awesome service. It's going to revolutionize how people trade. Now back to Alex Neist. I used to do smelling salts all the time just because it would open up my nasal airways, like before lifting, before football games. It would just like allow me to breathe through my nose, basically. Not very sustainable. Tears up the inside of your nose. You end up losing your sense of smell when you rip them too much. Yeah. So, but this seems like a much.
This is all natural. So it's not going to rip that shit open. It's much healthier for you, and you can keep this in your pocket and totally.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to get into, you are sort of a grip historian when it comes to
QB grip,
quarterback.
Baby.
And that is something, as a former quarterback, I was always playing with my grip and always being like, oh, how does Tom Brady hold the ball? How does Peyton, and you seem to have had it down packed. So let's
talk about that. Okay.
I have a football. We can get into it. How did you used to grip the football?
So what he's referring to is if you go to QB grip, so the handle QB grip on Instagram, what I started to do was a couple of years ago, I was always, all of us quarterbacks are fascinated by how quarterbacks grip the football.
Yeah.
And when we grow up, we typically will find a quarterback and we'll identify and say, I'm going to grip it like him.
Yeah.
Right. And we're inspired by somebody. So every quarterback is inspired by somebody or some experience in how they grip the football. Mm-hmm. And as a quarterback, our grip, it's one of the most intimate things that we have. It's like our fingerprint. And we have this intimate connection to the ball that we deal with day in and day out when it's rainy, when it's cold, when it's all these different things, and how we adapt it and move it and change it. So I want to tell that story. I want to document the QB grips across history, specifically with the NFL, because these are all the players we know and love. And I want to document how they all grip the football, much like how Kramer on Seinfeld was like, I want to have a coffee table books about coffee tables.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I want to have a coffee table book about quarterback grips, but on the internet.
Yeah.
So it started as pictures, and then I evolved it into making a video where I actually codified the grip.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll explain that. But so when I was growing up, my idol was Joe Montana.
Mm-hmm. And
I grew up in the 80s. Right. Mm-hmm. And in fact, okay, here's a story about this. So I was at a birthday party and I was probably 10, 11 years old. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they handed out packs of Topps football cards. And keep in mind, I wasn't into football at this point. I was not a football player. because I was a little kid. My dad never thought I was going to be a football player. He thought I was going to be a wrestler. So we got these Topps football cards, and the last card in my Topps pack was a Joe Montana card. It was like a 1989 or 90 or whatever it was, Joe Montana card. And everybody at the party was like, oh my God, you got a Joe Montana card. He's the best quarterback in the league. And I immediately went, holy shit, I want to be that guy. I don't know why, but I immediately just connected to Joe Montana, who he was at that moment. And then I dedicated the next 20 years of my life to be the best quarterback I could be.
Yeah.
So then I modeled my grip and everything I did around Joe Montana. But then as I got older, I realized that Joe has he's got a grip that's a little bit lower on the ball.
Yeah.
Right. And I realized my hands aren't quite as big as Joe. So I moved it more up top, higher on the ball, more like how Tom Brady grips it. And so then when I was in college and pro, I gripped it very similar to how Tom Brady grips it. Okay. So, but let's talk about the QB grip and the code that we talk. Okay. So what I've done is I've broken down the grip into 3 numbers. Okay. And I could have been way more detailed about it, as you and I both know, but I wanted regular fans to be able to look at this and go, oh, I get it, without it being too complicated. And so I said, all right, let's take the most common traits of a grip that people can see in a picture and on TV, which is, where's the ring finger? That's number 1. The basis for all of our grips on how we grip the football as a quarterback is, where's the ring finger? Where's that go?
Yeah. And
so the first number on the grip code that we use for QB grip is it on the first lace, second lace, third lace? That's usually what it is, 1, 2, or 3. Okay. And so for me, mine is on the first lace, right? Ring finger on that first lace, 1. The second number is, where is the pinky, right? Again, for most of us quarterbacks, do we have a very low pinky, a very, tight pinky? Is it over the laces? Is it under? Right? That's usually the thing is do you like it having it over or under? Right? So that's the second one, right? Is it over or under? Or is it, which lace is it on? Excuse me. Okay. Is it 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th lace, that kind of a thing. Okay. And then the last number is over under. Okay. Is that pinky over or under? All right. And so for me, I've got a 142, I think. 141, 142, I think, something like that. Right. And so then I took that code and I've assigned it to all the NFL quarterbacks. Yeah. Right. 141, 241, 251, all that kind of stuff. Right. And what I also found was the most common, what do you think is the most common grip? Like, just generally, like, what lace do you think the ring finger is on? 1 or 2?
I have to say 1.
It's 2.
It's 2.
The most common placement for the ring finger is 2.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the pinky is right around 4 or 5.
Okay.
And then it's not over the laces.
Yeah. Yeah. The pinky's always underneath.
Usually underneath. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the most common NFL grip by, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Now,
just guys with huge huge.
They got huge fucking hands. Right. Yeah. And that's another detail that I'll talk about is like how big hands are. Right. And usually when they measure quarterback hands, it's from here to here, the span.
Sneaking 10 inches.
Yeah, totally. You're 10?
Yeah.
Dude, that's big, man.
The thing is, it's weird because it's 10, but this is short compared to a lot of guys. Yeah. The bottom of the palm to top of the middle finger.
Yeah.
So I never had a fumbling problem, but I was always able to know no laces. That was I would always be able to get it out.
Okay.
Just no lace it. But there's 2 people with weird grips that I know of, and I'd love to hear some more guys with weird grips. Lamar Jackson has a weird grip where he puts his index finger almost on the tip of the ball, on the top of the tip. And then Colt McCoy, is he the one that does that thumb grip?
So, okay.
Yeah.
2 very different grips.
Right.
So Lamar Jackson he actually does what you just talked about. He doesn't always throw with the laces.
Right.
He'll just throw it with how he gets it sometimes. Sometimes he'll grip it with his ring finger on the first lace. Sometimes it's on the second lace. He's a bit inconsistent, but yes, he's usually very high
Yeah.
with his index finger on the ball, which is a detail of my code that I don't talk about. Is
Yeah.
a lot of quarterbacks will have a really high index finger or a really low index finger,
Yeah.
right? Now, Colt McCoy, what he does that's interesting, and there's only a couple other guys that do this, is his ring finger is on the third lace. Okay. So, and this is really odd. Most people who do a third lace are like inexperienced people who just grip a football and they're like, here, I can throw it.
Yeah.
And they like,
it's like, oh, my fingers have to line up with.
right. And they lay it in their hands like this and then they're like that. Right.
Yeah.
But Colt McCoy puts his ring finger on the third lace really low. Another guy that does this is Tua.
Yeah.
Tua has his ring finger all the way down on the third lace. Tua almost has his middle finger on the first lace. His borderline right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then his pinky is all the way down.
Yeah.
Like this low. I think that's 6. Okay. And then another guy who does is Brett Favre. Brett Favre is famous for he's got the biggest mitts. He's got that ring finger all the way on the third lace. But then what's interesting about him is because he's so big, his middle finger is like super high on the ball. I can't even do it.
Yeah.
It's so high on the ball that he spans it, so much that I don't even know how he does it. But
It's the wildest thing because has any GM called you up to evaluate quarterbacks on their grip? Because I feel like there's a direct correlation between consistency on grip.
Well, let's talk about this. So this is my theory, and it's a theory that I haven't proven with the data yet. But my theory is this: like you always hear people go, "Oh, because they have small hands, they fumble it a lot," or none of this has anything to do with fumbling or not with quarterbacks. Here's why hand size is important, not because of fumbling. So I think that there's a correlation of look at all the quarterbacks who have been the most successful in NFL history. Now there's exceptions to the rule here.
Right.
Okay. But it's not how tall they are. I think it's hand size.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's why. So if I have bigger hands, right. And when you play in the NFL, you're going to play in cold weather, in the rain.
Yeah.
When it's hot and humid, you're going to play in every scenario. And you and I both know that when you're fucking in Green Bay and it's fucking -5 degrees outside, how hard it is to hold the ball. It is so hard that if I've got huge hands, it doesn't matter. So having big hands means I can control the football in any environment, in any scenario, regardless of what's happening. So I think that there's a direct correlation between the size of guys' hands and the success of NFL quarterbacks over NFL history.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about how Lamar is very inconsistent in his grip. And like, for example, that fourth quarter missed throw he had where, I forget the receiver's name, but basically he blew a wide open receiver in the end zone. Then the next play was the guy's toe was just an inch out of bounds. But like that missed throw was a weird one, which could have been caused by inconsistency in grip. Because the grip is the last thing that, touches the football. And we see a lot of guys. It's one thing when in the quick game where if you're just grabbing it as fast as you can and getting it out on like a quick out or like a quick slant or something. Whereas that you can take a little more like freestyle with it, with your grip. But like guys who are in the pocket, if they're just willy-nilly gripping the ball how they want to, that's going to affect it down the field when you launch it.
I think so. I think because that's something that I think as young kids, if you teach young kids to be able to just get the ball out of gun and not get the laces and throw quick, that's a really valuable skill to be able to do. But if you're throwing down the field, if you're throwing a 30 post route, it's really hard to do consistently if you don't have the ball in a really good spot in your hand. So it very well could be, but
who's the guy? I remember talking about this on another podcast. There's someone who grips the ball like this.
Oh,
have you seen that? Or maybe it was just a random photo I saw.
I think it's a random photo.
During a quick game throw.
I went to college with a guy who did that actually. Yeah. It was really weird.
There's people that do that.
There are people who do it. It's really weird. I think they just feel like when they get their thumb hooked on the lace, they feel like they get a better, snap on it. But I don't think there's a single guy in the NFL that actually does it. So you may have just seen like
someone in college.
A quick, it could have been, well, here's what they're teaching more of in college is, like we've been saying, just getting the ball out of gun and getting rid of it.
Yeah.
So you probably just saw a snapshot of him getting the ball and then getting rid of the football without worrying about if he has the laces or not.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
True. That probably, and I mean, all this RPO, they're not even gripping the ball.
No, I mean, because we're all, even I'm doing it now where I'm back in coaching again and I'm teaching all the guys when we're in gun, throwing short, don't worry about the laces. Just get it out, get comfortable with that.
Would you ever go as far to be like, let's just pretend the laces don't exist?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
But even in all aspects of the game, just to make that more efficient?
Totally. Because if you start a kid young enough and he's not worrying about the laces, then it's almost, because the laces almost become psychological.
Yeah.
Right. Because think about it from our perspective, we've grown up our whole lives relying on the laces, going,
find the laces,
gotta find the laces, gotta find the laces, gotta find the laces. And just imagine if you had grown up practicing, never worrying about the laces.
Yeah.
How big, because think about this, right? You play baseball, right? When you pitch, you find the laces and you find a four seam and you do it. But when you're not pitching, you don't throw worrying about where the laces are. Granted, yes, it's a little different, but it's not that different.
I mean, throwing quick go routes in one-on-one coverage, just putting it up, I'm not that worried about the laces, but when you really got to bear down on a ball. But I mean, I could imagine, because when you're doing like 3-step drop, 5-step drop, you're spending a decent amount of your maybe subconscious mind finding those laces and getting a good grip. Whereas if you're just a guy who just grabs it, like who knows what your mind could be doing, like breaking down defenses, protections, like, how much distraction is it?
Well, it's kind of like when you have a backup center in the game.
Yeah.
Now all you're thinking about is, fuck, am I going to get the ball?
Yeah.
And all you're thinking about is don't fumble it. Right.
Right.
So it's another,
give you the laces.
It's another detail that you can take out of the quarterback's mind and just focus on, what am I reading? What's in front of me? What's the defense doing? And really staying dialed into what's most important rather than, do I have the laces or not?
Yeah. Huh. Which quarterbacks? So you've been doing all this. Is there a grip you think is actually more advantageous, or is it just, it's everybody's?
Okay. So again, the most common grips that I see are ring finger on the second lace. Is the most common by far. It's the 251.
Yeah.
Is the most common grip. 251. Ring finger second lace. Yeah, 251.
This is what I always used to do. Now that I grab it.
Yeah. That's what your grip right there is, about the most common grip that most NFL quarterbacks use. That's the most common one.
Man, I was just,
and then the
more variables away from the NFL.
The next most common is having the ring finger on the first lace. So guys who typically have smaller hands, like Tom Brady is a good example. Tom doesn't have huge hands. Tom and my hands are probably about the same. I've got about a 9.25, 9.5 span on my hand. Yeah. Right. And that's about Tom. And Tom has his ring finger on the first lace. And then his pinky is over the fourth or fifth lace. Yeah. Over the laces. And so he would have a 142-ish. 152-ish border, somewhere around there. And that's about what mine is too. And that's the other most common, like Baker Mayfield has that one. Yeah. And then the least common is the 3 lace, like the ring on the third lace, which is Tua, McCoy, Brett Favre did it. Here's the really weird one, dude. Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw has probably one of the most, along with Brett Favre, one of the most oddest grips, because he's, like you said earlier with Lamar, he's one of the original OG finger on top of the ball.
I mean, this is just weird to me. Like, guys are throwing it like this.
I don't know. I've tried to do it. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it.
How do they do it without just throwing like literally something that goes head over heels?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like, geez. I mean, by the way, for everyone who's like, these guys have been talking about gripping a football for 20 minutes.
We could go like for hours.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be people who are like, wow, this is really in depth. Who's actually a very throw god also does the finger on top.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
When he teaches guy's got a cannon, wild. We're going to have him back on. Maybe, hopefully we'll reel it in, keep him to some limited football only topics. But
what's odd about, so when I was growing up, I actually did the opposite.
Yeah.
Because I had always heard, get the index finger. And that's the last thing that touches the ball. But believe it or not, I think for me and a lot of the new style that you're seeing, it's not the index finger, man. It's not.
Yeah.
The index finger is actually a lot like, look at Pat Mahomes, right?
Yeah.
His index finger is really not that big of a part of his grip. And because of how he grips it, he palms the ball in his hand, right?
Yeah.
He's actually almost he's putting it and he's using these fingers
That's
more than anything.
everyone always used to talk about like your index finger is the last thing.
It's not,
to turn
man.
over. I'm like, that never, I never like got even involved. It was like my middle and ring finger.
Right.
Yeah.
It's most of everything you're seeing now supports this idea that everything is coming from here. So when you look at a lot of the guys, when they throw it and they release it, their index finger is like, comes off and then everything is here like that, right? Not like this.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I don't think that's the right thing.
Well, okay. So back to your question is, dude, it's what feels comfortable, honestly. Like there's a point where you put the ball in your hand and whatever is comfortable to you, that's what you do within reason, right? Like, so certainly there'll be kids that I see where one of the biggest things I'll address is, I don't like teaching palming the ball like Pat does.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what you want to do. Like putting the ball in the palm of your hand. You think you want to have it in your fingertips.
But they used to teach that thing even when shooting a basketball, that you shouldn't palm the ball and you should like just have your fingers be like the first, even when catching the ball. But like that doesn't seem natural at all. I mean,
yeah, I can't comment about basketball, but like, I mean, but the other one is your thumb. What I see a lot with young kids is the thumb is way too high, right? And so I'll try to get kids to understand that your thumb should almost be parallel to your middle finger here, because then you have control of the ball, right? Moving it. So if it's too high, then you're almost, it's in your hand here.
Yeah.
And then you can't control it.
So you coach in Minnesota?
I do.
What do you think about Tim Walz's coaching career? No, I'm kidding. We can move on.
We don't want to talk about
No. What's so how did you end up being advertising with the UFC, Dana White? I know a bunch
I got a great story about UFC. Yeah. So Busting with the Boys, they're big hostage tapers. Like were you at the summer camp thing?
I was not. That was more the Chicago office.
Yeah, I think they brought hostage tape and like everybody was wearing hostage tape like while they were there. So, and they were tweeting about it and stuff. But okay. Yes, where hostage tape is the official sleep aid of the UFC.
Nice.
Okay. I'm really proud of that. And so here's the story. So before the Super Bowl of last year, the UFC came to my head of partnerships, Pat, shout out Pat. And they were like, hey, Alex or Pat, we'd love to look at a partnership between Power Slap and hostage tape. And if you haven't seen Power Slap, go look it up. It's wild. It's where they stand in front of each other and they slap the shit out of each other. Right.
Yeah.
It's wild. So he brought it to me. I'm like, okay, well, this could be interesting. So we literally jumped on a plane. We flew out to UFC headquarters, went in, sat down. And this was right before the Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
So we sit down and they go, Alex, we changed our mind. We actually think you'd be a great partner for the UFC. And I'm like, guys, like, let's be honest here. We're only, barely 2 years old. I'm not Prime. I'm not Manscaped. I'm not some of these huge brands yet.
Yeah.
Like, we're not there. Like, we will be there, but we're still kind of a startup. Okay. I don't have the kind of revenue they do. And they're like, okay, we get it. We understand. But then when I realized, like, holy shit, like, I can use UFC licensing in our products. So I can put an ad out and say, this is hostage tape.
Yeah.
We're the official sleep aid of the UFC. And I can use that, use their marks. I went, there's a ton of value there for us as we're doing direct response marketing, right? Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So that night, then we go to Power Slap. They invited us to go. And if you've never been to Power Slap, it's basically invite only VIP where it's literally like the who's who of the internet, Will and Taylor, they go to those things all the time. Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer are always there. You're seeing the Nelk boys. You're seeing literally everybody at this stuff.
It would be hilarious if one of those guys in Power Slap who they get knocked out, if they just immediately throw hostage tape on their face. And so when they're sleeping, they're getting good sleep.
I'm sure like
that's just that. I'll charge you that in my bill for consulting.
We've talked about some interesting concepts of like, how can we actually integrate it in? Because there's so many great shots of close-ups of the face and the mouth.
Yeah.
We haven't come up with anything just yet. But so we go to Power Slap, right?
Yeah.
And there's everybody there. You know, even Charles Barkley was at this one, and Travis Scott was there, and all these people, right? And so we're sitting across eye level from Dana, where Lorenzo Fertitta sits, and then Hunter Campbell, and then there's a big dick of the moment seat, right? That sits next to Dana. That Charles Barkley sits down, and then Travis Scott, and then Tom Brady walks in.
Tom Brady was like Power Slap.
I was like, holy fucking shit, dude. Tom Brady just walked. And for me, like you and me, like that was
Let's see those hands.
That got my rocks off right there. Right?
Show me those hands.
Right. Show me those hands, dude. Let's see how small. No, I love you.
Dude, I hated Tom Brady growing up as a Jets fan, but I studied him so much.
How can he not?
Because he was so good, and it was such a mind. Like it was such a mind fuck to like be like, I want to be exactly like this guy, and how he plays, but also be like, this guy beats the Jets all the time and just makes my life miserable.
Well, the reason Tom was so great is because he prepared and he studied every aspect of the game and his opponent going into the game. So Tom didn't beat you because he was a great athlete, because he wasn't. He beat you with his mind.
Yeah.
And he was good enough athletically that he could throw the ball, put the ball where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And he just did that consistently.
His timing. And, you know, he was one of those guys, and this is disappearing from the game, where his short passing was more effective than the run game at times. And that's sort of disappeared from the game. That just like dink and dunk down the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the old West Coast style, right?
Yeah.
Your short pass game is the run game, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So, but
back to Power Slap.
Yeah. Power Slap. So we're sitting there across from eye level, right? Tom Brady walks in, sits down, and then they walk up and they're like, all right, Alex, are you ready to meet Dana? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm ready to meet Dana White. Like right after Tom Brady. Fuck yeah. Like, so it actually ended. And then they take us into the back. And we're in the back room, the VIP room, where again, everybody's in this room. Yeah. So I walk up, Dana White turns around. He's got that big old grin on his face that he's got. And he looks at me and he goes, Lorenzo, where's Lorenzo at? And Lorenzo comes over. And Dana looks at me and goes, Alex, so listen to this. We're sitting there, right? Lorenzo's sitting next to me and he bumps me and he goes, look, the hostage tape guys are here. And I'm standing there going, holy shit. And Lorenzo shakes my hand. He goes, Alex, I just want to thank you. I've been wearing hostage tape now for a few months. It's changed my life. Hunter walks up, shakes my hand, says the same thing. And Dana's like, yeah, man, I've been seeing your brand everywhere. You guys are killing it. You even sent me stuff because I wanted to get on one of those fucking Fridays that he does. And so I'm standing there, right? And I just met all these guys, some of the most influential dudes in the world. And I'm like, I had a moment of hostage tape didn't exist 2 years ago. And now I'm standing in front of some of the most powerful, influential people in the world in a room of all these people.
Whoa.
Wow. Like this is crazy and insane. And then 2 months later, we negotiated the deal and became the official sleep aid of the UFC.
Whoa. I mean, great commercial idea. Guy gets put to sleep in the UFC, and then they throw hostage tape on him with a nasal ring. Then he wakes up, he's like, oh, I feel great. What's on my face?
What? No, here's what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to say it, but so Bruce Buffer, you know, so, you know, the saying he does, right? What I want to do is have him. Well, we're going to do a spot one of these days here where he does his famous line, right? Where it's at that point, then it's ready to put on some hostage tape. Right. So imagine having Bruce Buffer like bust into the room and like do his line. Like it would be amazing.
That would be awesome. But yeah, I mean, trying to think, how do you think those Gophers are doing? I mean,
well, I mean, they've dropped the last two to Iowa and Michigan.
I mean, PJ Fleck, is it time to get rid of him?
No. Okay. Look, here's the thing. So I love PJ.
Yeah.
And here's what you got to realize. Like, dude, we're not Ohio State. We're not Michigan, but there's something about like what PJ brings to the program that he's done to the program. Like we have we have amazing facilities now. We have everything you could ask for. And like, look, we're not going to be the best team in the conference year in and year out.
Yeah.
It's still a process. And look, we are Minnesota. It's not like we have a precedence of being the best team in the country for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's building a program, and I think you just have to continue to give him time because I think everything that he is and stands for is so good and so good for the program that you just got to leave him be. Let him do his thing.
What about all these new teams joining the Big Ten?
Dude, this is a mindfuck.
Yeah.
Like my wife and I were sitting at.
How can Minnesota compete? They're an OG Big Ten.
Well, okay. This was what's crazy. My wife and I are sitting at a restaurant the other day, Saturday.
Yeah.
And I look up and I see, I think it was Wisconsin playing USC.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at USC's helmet that's got a Big Ten sticker on it. And I'm like, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would see USC is part of the Big Ten and the Pac-12. The Pac-10 is no more. It's wild. So,
I mean, they're just all trying to compete with the SEC, and for good reason. I mean, that Bama Georgia game was insane. I forgot to mention this about Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams had kill everybody. He's 17 years old on his iBlack, kill everybody. Like most guys got Bible verses. And then after the game, he changes all of his profile pictures to Michael Vick with the dog. Being like he's killed the dogs. I mean, he's 17 years old and he's pulling those stunts. I mean, it may be immature, but he's 17. He can get away with it.
Yeah.
But that's NIL. You graduate early to get the money.
Dude, there was a post on LinkedIn that I recently commented on this UNLV quarterback, dude.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about this real quick. Cause like the controversy is, okay, this kid 3 games in, they're doing great. Apparently there's a dispute over $100K that was promised to him. He didn't get it. Now he quits because of it. I posted and I said, look, and this is my opinion. This is a hot take. My opinion is this. Now, granted, I'm old school, right? I didn't grow up in the whole NIL era that it is. My take is that you're playing college football. It's about football. It's not about money. The money doesn't come until you get to the NFL because they're kids. These kids are kids, but in my opinion.
At the same time.
I know. Hold on. They're kids. So again, I'm old school when it comes to this. It's my opinion that they're kids. They should be going there to learn how to become men, to play football, save the money for later when you get to the NFL. So I think that what that kid did is he signed his death warrant. I don't think a lot of coaches are going to want to touch him because of what he did. Well, that's my opinion.
At the same time, it's the NIL stuff's weird because you can't sign a contract until you commit to the school or until you enroll in the school. So they may have been promising him $100K and then he enrolls and then they give him a contract for $10K, I think it was, or $3K. And it's like, wait, you just screwed me. Like there's no guarantees.
Well, and here's the other problem I have with it from his point of view. It's like, dude, you and I both know that too often the grass is not always greener.
Right.
You get into a program and if shit's firing and shit's going well, what makes you think that you're going to just transfer and become a starter at some other Division I program and everything is going to be rosy?
Well, there is the element though. They're driving ticket sales, they're driving viewership, but also like that's his prime earning years because he's a guy who it's like.
Well, what makes him think though that he's good enough to have the right opportunity to be a starter at some other school? There's no way he's that elite.
But yet, right, he's not. But at the same time, he's not that good, so he's not going to make money in the NFL.
Like Arch, look at Manning, Arch Manning, right?
Yeah,
look at him. He's elite.
Yeah,
he's got the name. Even him, he wasn't even starting up until now.
But that was good. That's how they treat guys who, all these guys are just getting thrown out there. It's coaches trying to extend their next contract to be like, look, we got a new guy coming in. Oh, he's not doing well. Oh, we lost that gamble. We're going to get a new guy. It's because you'll get paid for longer pulling that shit.
I get it. And you're right. Is this kid going to make it to the NFL with his style? Probably not.
Yeah.
Maybe he's good enough to play another position. I don't know. I just still think like, dude, you had an amazing opportunity. You guys are winning. You're playing football, man. You're playing college football, Division I college football. You had it. Now I think he threw away the opportunity. And on top of it, most coaches are going to think like me and go, I'm not going to touch this kid. There's other kids that I can bring in that are going to be dedicated
at that
to
level.
the program.
But I think he held out. And I mean, now there's some casino that's like, we'll pay the $100K. This is nothing compared to like, that they can use as a write-off. Like we'll pay the $100K for you. UNLV. I mean, they're playing very well. They had huge NIL money influx because it's Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, if you can have another show to go to and they can pump money into and bring more people to Vegas. Like if the UNLV football games become as big as the Golden Knights, become as big as the Raiders, just from even like a low bar, that's another show that's going to make Vegas money.
I think there's definitely an argument that with how football and sports is now becoming a big thing in Vegas, there's no reason why UNLV doesn't have a huge runway to be able to become a big time program.
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of money there.
Yeah.
And it's money that's like, it's the Wild West of NIL right now. And you got a lot of money in Vegas that's going to be thrown around. So I think that's also why he's like pissed.
So in your mind,
yeah,
it's the Wild West. How do you fix NIL right now? What do you do?
Guaranteed contracts before enrollment. But on the hinging on enrollment. So you don't get paid before you enroll. You need to set up a marketplace, and every single transaction needs to be made public. That's a startup idea I've been thinking about. A database of all NIL offers, and you can't make an offer unless it's public. So then people see where the market is.
Yeah.
Because there's, you can promise a guy $100K like this guy, and then you can end up paying him nothing because of how it's set up right now. So that's why he's pissed. I mean, he's paying for his own housing. I mean, at the same time, I know there's the argument that they're getting an education, they're getting admittance to the school, but these big time D1 college football programs, they're not getting the same education as someone. It's just not like Josh Rosen talked about it way back in the day. He's out of the league now because of basically sort of a lot of the attitude towards what he said. But basically he's like, I can't choose certain degrees because I need something that won't take up time for football. Like they're not getting the same education. And as the UNC stuff showed, where they're like showing, they basically, someone tweeted the essay that a guy wrote, and it was like a 5-sentence paragraph about, I think it was about Rosa Parks, like riding the bus. And it was like, this was his midterm paper. And it's wild that it's allowed, like they're not getting a real education. And even though it's like great institutions, they're not given enough like resources to actually focus.
Well,
and they don't want them to.
I had coaches back when I was in college who used to say, hey, you're here to play football second and go to school first.
Yeah, but guess what? Yeah. That's, I mean, when you're coaching in Alabama and UNLV, where there's big money behind the coaching, you're like, fuck school. You didn't come here to play.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It was a wink, wink. They would say like, so that was the understanding totally. But
I mean, if some of these guys like make a decent amount of dough playing mid-major college football, and then they, do something good with it, like start a business after school, like this Sluka, I think his name is, like, if he got that 100K, he could have started the next hostage tape, just like if he put it in the bank.
I just think it comes down to, what are we teaching? Because look, we're teaching young kids to become men. College football is about teaching these kids to be men. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's our job as coaches. Yes, we're trying to win games.
Yeah.
Right. We're trying to be competitive. Of course, we're also trying to develop them into men. And what is this whole NIL teaching them? How's it teaching them to become men?
That's my favorite part about high school football. Like playing the different levels, like in high school, winning was important, but there was like more about developing as people.
Yeah.
And that's totally been lost at the college level. Like winning is because of like how the coaching industries worked, guys getting paid, trying to get better jobs. The competition there has actually created a type of football that a lot of, like, everybody who played high school football loves it more than their college experience.
You could argue that there's been a huge shift in, I remember the days of a lot of people loved college football over the NFL because college football was playing it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And it was just guys out there having fun. Now it's completely shifted, dude.
Yeah.
Now it's all these kids, it's a money grab of how much money can they get on where they go for NIL. And now I'd probably much rather watch NFL football, right?
Yeah. I mean, the college games this past weekend were much better than the NFL games, in my opinion. I mean, that Virginia Tech, Miami game, that was insane. Like, that was back and forth, and basically two sides thought they won at the same time at the end of regulation. And like, was it a pick? That was insane. You cannot, like script that. Like there still is that magic in college football, but you can't have, Urban Meyer, Nick Saban making millions and millions of dollars while these guys are getting nothing and then getting in trouble if they get anything.
Something has to happen. It just, I think that's the dilemma we're in, right? Is because the door has been opened. It's making the right decisions not too soon. Like you have to let the dust settle and do it the right way and not be too rash, I think, on putting certain regulations in place. That's probably why it's taking so long, and because they just don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know if Ryan Williams can even touch his NIL money. I mean, because he's 17. Like, does he get paid as a minor?
I don't know the law, man.
Yeah,
I don't know the rules. Honestly, I purposely don't pay attention to it just because I can't stand NIL, the whole NIL game as it is.
I can,
You know how many, I'll say this, the amount of college athletes who DM hostage tape and say, hey man, I'd love to like do an NIL deal with you guys.
Yeah.
And we don't do NIL deals. Now, I'm happy to send hostage tape. Like we send out tons of hostage tape to college athletes. I'll send you guys hostage tape. But these guys who come to us that want NIL deals, like,
so you wouldn't do sponsored posts?
No,
that marketing does work though. I mean, you're going to have kids, right? Who, like, let's say you get, one of these top players, tons, like thousands of Instagram followers, and you're like, hey, we'll pay you this much for this many posts of you using hostage tape. That does like work.
Sponsored posts don't derive that great of results.
But let's say this player, like, remember you're talking about grips, like Tom Brady's grip. Let's say the next Tom Brady's using hostage tape. You're going to have tons of athletes.
There could always be like, you bet early on a kid who then 4 years later becomes the #1 draft pick.
Well, I mean,
that can happen.
I mean, Henry Williams became a star overnight. He changed his profile picture to Mike Vick, and everyone thinks it's fake because now he has PR people like basically saying it was all fake, but literally he DM'd Ocho Cinco and had that Mike Vick, and like it's crazy. Like, does that guy?
All right, look, I'll put it out there. If there's any young guys, young talents who think they're going to be that guy, DM us at Hostage Tape.
Yeah. Well, great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Hope you enjoy New York while you're here. I got some great recommendations for some spots. This has been an awesome interview. Got into way more stuff than I thought, which I appreciate. But thank you so much for coming on.
Just remember, don't let bad sleep hold you hostage.
Subscribe to the pod. Thanks, guys.
Daddy used to knock them down, yeah, and I should have known not to mess around with the nightlife or the bright lights or the women who won't be my wife. He told me, Sonny, leave them vices on the shelf. Oh, but the dog's in the dive with a silver bullet, and if the kegs